All right, we're back. We are COMP1006, W2017. That's the winter of 2017. Week 8, part 3 of our broadcast. We're just going to finish off our authentication piece. We have about an hour left. I think we have enough time. So I entered a web program here at Georgian. We built our two views, our login and a register view, but you can only get to them right now by actually going and log in and register. There is no nav bar. We haven't added a nav bar navigation to this website at all yet. And there's a reason for this, because I want to include it, right? I want to include my navigation as a separate file in a views folder, a partials folder or something, right? And I've been saving up for it until we get there. Okay, so let's get back to this PowerPoint stuff, because the PowerPoint is where all the code is, right? It's a matter of decoding everything. So here we talk about the session variable. The session variable in this case would be called product code. We assign a value to it, okay? And we can check if it's set or not set. In fact, this is a great way of checking to see if a superglobal variable or a session variable has been set. We've already done that with messages, right? If it's set, then we can do something. We can also do something like this. We can say add an element to an array that's stored in a session. So we can add an array. So here's an example. My cart key, my key 1 would have this value. My cart key 2 would have another value. And this is the way you would set it up. I don't recommend doing it this way, and I'll tell you why. Because it's far, far better to have a session that holds an object than for it to hold individual properties. For now, it is what it is. And now you guys have taken object-oriented design, yeah? So you guys should know a little bit about OOP, a little bit, Java, right? Did you just learn it, or are you learning it? Or you're learning it, right? So just now, learning object-oriented programming. All right, so that's why I'm holding off. Yeah, I'm glad. Yay. Okay. So this is just an example of how to store stuff and get stuff from the session. Notice that we're using a for each for every cart in item, right? Items in the cart, the other way around. Then echo a new list item, and this was just kind of create a list of objects in the cart. Okay. How do we remove it? We can unset. You can use the word unset, the session variable, and we want to do that. We want to unset stuff when we, when we leave, so that way we don't keep session variables alive for any longer than we need them, because they are as a whole in our security. We have data floating around, right, that people can access if they know how to access the session cookie. All right, session destroy. Cleans up the session and does all of the, so we unset stuff, and we can also destroy the whole session. So the session is, kind of basically stopped. And this is good because remember, we create the session and then we need to destroy the session when we're done, right? Here's an example where we're, the session data, if we say the session itself is equal to an array, an empty array, this is the way we do the empty array. Then we can, once we set it to an empty array, it's an empty object, and therefore it's reset. Okay. And it shows you here how to do that, it continues how to show you how to end the session, right? So here we have our session name, right? My name is the session name, and we can add these are different variables that we're setting here, right? With our params variable, params array. And the params array can include things like path, domain, whatever else they want. And then you can pass all of those things into the cookie, right? Notice params is another superglobal variable, right? It's a special variable that you get path, domain, and everything else from the parameters of your URL, okay? Again, for the most part, we're not going to use it. Yeah?
Is there like a general, say, the time for a session live?
Yeah, you don't want to make it too long. Like 10 minutes would be good, because that means like nothing's happened in 10 minutes, right? Half an hour would be a typical state, right? Half an hour where things, you come back and you're still logged in, right? The schools use a smaller time frame, like well, depending on the school. Like Blackboard, you can be logged in for an hour and not touch anything, and you're okay, right? But after a couple hours, it logs you out, right? So I don't know if it's 120 minutes or whatever they set up. Okay, I'm not going to talk about this. We talked about managing a session. So session name, We can regenerate the session ID if we need to, and a bunch of other stuff that we're not going to deal with, right? Okay, let's talk about authentication. So reason why we talked about sessions and cookies is we need to have them, we need to access these things, these structures, in order for us to authenticate. Session keeps track of our who's logged in, if you're logged in, right? And cookies are used to track our usernames and passwords and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so there's three forms of authentication: form-based authentication, kind of a basic authentication, and something called digest authentication. Form-based authentication, the code for login basically gets the username and password, which is what we're doing right now, and then the developer makes a request with a username and password once per session. So this is form-based authentication, right? And this is by default, it does not encrypt the username and password before sending it to the server, right? We're going to encrypt them later. Today, right now, it's just clear text. Can we get in? Can we authenticate? Can I check between me and what's on the database? Remember, I have a database entry, Thomas 123456, I think it is, right? I think that's when I made it. And I can check to see if I'll check to see if I'm logged in. If I am, or if it's me, then it'll log me in. Basic authentication. The browser will display a dialog box that comes up. That's old school. We don't do that anymore. So let's leave that alone. Digest authentication. The browser displays a dialog box that gets username and password and encrypts the username and password before sending it to the server. So we're still going to do something like between form-based and digest authentication. It's not a dialog box. It's a little login form. It's going to be form-based authentication. But before we send it to the server, we encrypt everything. Eventually, we're going to get there. Okay, so here's how you create a administrators table. Now, this is like a user table that we created. They use email address and password, first name and last name, and so on. I didn't do that, right? All I did was I made an ID and some simple things. You don't have to go this complex if you don't want to. Notice that the username is this and the password is hashed. This is the hashed version of the password. Okay. All right, here's our admin DB file. We need to put this in place, the admin DB file. Why? It checks. Remember I talked about, it checks to see if I'm logged in or whatever. Well, here's what it does. If I want to add a new user, right, here's where I do that. Notice that we use this thing SHA1, right? This is the hash right here. SHA1 is, it takes the username or whatever it is, and it creates an encrypted version of the password. So it hashes it, okay? So this is what actually adds the new user, and it actually adds the encrypted version of the password on the server. Now, if you said, okay, can you tell me what my username is? They wouldn't be able to tell you because it's completely hashed, yeah. Of course they have, right? That's why I told you PHP is very insecure. Let's use another kind of hashing algorithm. But they'd have to look at it. You'd have to have access to the server to look at what the password is and all that kind of stuff. But of course they've found ways to break it. Nowadays the hash is way longer, and it's not SHA1. It's usually MD5 or something else, right? All right, so here's our password. And notice it says email.password. It's almost like they combine your email and password to create your password. Notice that? So it's not, so it takes both of those things, hashes them, and that's your new password. And then when you log in, your email and password are used as a password again to log in when you validate. So this one creates, right? And this is what it does. It says, here's my query, insert into administrators. What we're going to insert into? Users, right? Insert into users. It won't be email address. It'll be username, password, and display name. Those are the three things I'm going to add in, right? And we're going to bind values that we're going to get from our post super global variable with our registration page, right? Let's check this out and see if it works like this. And this part here, this part will be at the top of our register.php page. This part. Why? Because this part here actually adds in the admin. It registers the person. This is the registration function. Okay. Here, what they've done is they've broken it out. Remember I talked about model view controller? this is the controller, right? Just the logic piece for the registration. And they have two different methods. One of them is the add admin, and the other one is valid admin login. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if is the valid user. If the person is a valid user, then I can check to see if he's if he's validated. I'm going to have this almost like this validate user or whatever it is. And if he's validated, then he can progress to the page. If he's not validated, he's going to be kicked off back to the login page. That's what's going to happen. Okay. So our password is going to be clear text for now. Okay? And I'm doing this on purpose because we're going to hit encryption and all that kind of stuff later on. Okay. So I need this part here. So global, where it says DB, that's not important. What I need to do is I want to, with my page. So if I go back to my PHP page here, notice that normally what I want to do is I want to do this, include once my config. I need to do this anyway, right? So this basically connects me, right? So I want to do this at the top of my registration page. I'm doing register first, and I'll talk about why in a second. So here's my registration page. Now, is this correct? Up one, right? Up one, down into config and database.php. Yes, it is, right? Okay, so that's the first thing I want to check. And by the way, should I do this before or after I register? Like, do I really want to connect to my database before my username is even set? And the answer is no. I can do that in here, right? So I can kind of cut this. And the first thing I want to do here is I want to put this in here, right? I want to connect to my database after I know that my username is posted. I'm going to get this username super global variable from down in here, right? I'm posting to myself. Remember, here's my name, username. If they entered it correctly and they submitted, the form gets sent back to this particular page, and the PHP at the top of the page captures and deals with the form. Yeah. Why would you? But why would we want to? It's one more thing to do. Like, it's going to go out to the database. Why? Let's just only do that when we need to, right? And remember what we're doing in our config. When we connect to the database, we're doing this. We're setting up our DSN, our username and password. We got to be very careful here the way we've named this, by the way, right? See this username and password stuff? We set this up username and password. It's going to think it's username and password from username and password, right? We don't want to do this because this is going to be, remember, we add anything that's inside of our includes into our files, right? So very, very careful about what to do here. So maybe we want to think about changing these to something else in being preemptive, because they're not going to affect anything else, right? So maybe something like username would be a capital username here. I want to use a capital, oops, undo. And actually what I'll do is I'll rename this whole thing. Rename. Refactor, rename. And we'll rename it to, actually it's kind of, username is okay, but I'll kind of go username. Capital U. And I'll do the same thing with my password, right? So I'll refactor, rename. We'll call it password. So now it's capital U and capital P, which is different than lowercase u, lowercase p, which I'm going to use later on, right? And why am I doing this? Again, remember what I was talking about? If I don't do this, because I'm injecting into my registration page at the top, this, and if I have other usernames and passwords, here's an example of this, post username, right? Then it's going to clash. The same variable name is going to be used, yeah. No. All right, let's go back in here and check this out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up, I'm going to connect to the database, and then the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start getting these values from the super global variable, right? So I'm going to say something like this, $ username is equal to the super global variable post username, right? Because I'm posting there, right? And $ password for now is going to be equal to the, again, the super global variable, and then password, because I'm passing this in. Remember, now everyone understand where I'm getting these from? They're coming from the form. The form itself has a name attribute that's connecting to the post. Making sure that I actually type it properly would be good. Okay, and the same thing goes with my display name. So display name is going to be equal to the underscore post display name. Those are the first things I need to do. So those things are going to get, I'm going to get from my my form. Okay, now I'm going to try to insert, right? And if you look at my configuration here, I'm going to say, here's my query, right? Here's my query in here. For now, I'm not going to check to see if they're unique. All right, I'm going to do that later. Okay, and we can delete users and all that stuff later on. So I'm going to do a query, insert into administrators. In this case, it'll be insert into users, right? So that's what my query is going to be. Insert, right, into users. I think I've made it lowercase. And then what I want to insert in there, I definitely want to insert my username. I think I called it, I made it lowercase. Username, password, and display name. I think that's what I made it, like that. And so I'm going to kind of hide this for now because, and the values are going to be email, or sorry, the values. I have the right syntax here, value, because this is where we run into errors, right? Values are going to be colon, and then whatever the value that I'm going to have in there, right? So it's going to be, again, colon username, right? Colon password. These are the things I'm going to inject in here, right? Colon, and then the display name.
How come you use those colons?
No problem. Talk about that in a second. So remember that these colons, right? Colon email, colon password, they come from these things.
Yes, but how come you need to?
Because what's happening is the query itself, I can't inject PHP. I can't stitch together PHP that way. Well, it is a string. I could do it manually. I could say that I want to put my value in there. The problem is sometimes what ends up happening is it doesn't stitch together properly. And what this does with email and password, it interpolates. It says, here's my placeholder for email. Here's my placeholder for password. So the colon and whatever the thing is a placeholder for where I'm going to inject the actual values. That's what they are. And they're bound right here. So also I'm going to do this method. This is only one way of doing it, by the way. All right, so now I'm going to do my statement.prepare, right? And if I did this properly, let's make sure that we kind of end this off correctly. Did I just mess that up? Sorry, it's really long. And I want to kind of do this. I could probably break this over a couple of lines, but I'm just going to do one of these. All right, so this is my statement. And if it's wrong, it'll error out. And I want to do something like, the next thing is my statement, and then prepare. And what I want to do with my prepare, right? Oh, I'm sorry, db.prepare. Apologies. Statement is equal to db.prepare. db, because now that I have db prepare, because db comes from this. Right? This is where I'm getting the variable from here, from this when I included once, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in there the query, right? So my statement is going to take my query, and it's going to format it. That's what it's going to do. And then we're going to get our find values. So statement find value. And inside there, we're going to have a value, which in this case is going to be called colon username with $username. Right, so that's the first one. And the same ones are going to be for password and display name. This is the same pattern we've seen before. Right, so this is going to be password, password. Like I'm adding in any other table, if I can actually put in everything properly. And this is display name. There we go. Okay, so that's that part. Okay, and then I want to execute the query and close my cursor, which closes off the database. So execute the query. And then I want to close off the cursor, statement.close cursor. Okay. So that does everything. That inserts this user. But what I need to do, if I was going to, what would I really need to do here if I wanted to check to see if the user is unique? Before I do insertion, I would check to see if the user exists. If the user exists, if that username exists, then I would send a message. I would skip by and say, send a message that, you know, that user exists, right? So let's do that. So here we've done this part, and I want to still do this, but I want to sit there and go, okay, here's my username. So before I even talk about password and display name, let's check to see if the user exists. So we can do another query, right? Same, use the same variable as well, right? And what I want to do here is I want to basically read, just like I've done in everything else. So I want to do a select statement, select, right? And all users that match. I want to be able to fetch my users, and if it comes back with a match, right, then I know that it's a negative, right? That's what I want to do. So how would I phrase that if you're going to do a SQL query? Select what? So star from users, right? Okay, where, and again, it would be username in brackets, right? I think it is. Oh, no, username like this. Username. Well, I can't do $sign username. I can't do that. I got to do that whole statement prepare thing, whatever, right? And this is where I'm not, like I said, you see, I'm not saying I'm not going to do it because it's an extra step that I got to do. But let's leave that for later. So what we're going to do this piece, right? But we're going to say need, you know, we're going to say a to do check for unique username. So to do that we have to do. Okay? Kind of. And so therefore, if I can do it, maybe there's a place I can inject code again to check that stuff to see if the user is unique. Is the user unique, right? All right, so for now, let's do this. So it's going to check whatever's in the closed cursor. And then what about if I have an error, right? So if I have an error, then show me that there's an error, right? And what I want to try and do is do something like this. When I execute or do any of this stuff in here, I want to put all this stuff in here. So I want to say, I want to do a try catch. So here's my try catch, right? So I want to try to do all this stuff, right? And it's a good idea to do this anyway. And then I want to do, here's my catch. And in my catch, there's a different way. I can just do one of these, which would be fine. But remember what I did before with my try catch? I want to get a list of errors. So what's my exception? Right? Where my exception is, we'll say exception. Right? Exception. Call it E. Right? Actually, I think I have to call it E. Right? And if my exception, I want to kind of show my message, my messages, right, is equal to my E dot messages. See, I don't know if it's E dot message or E dot message. Get message, yeah. Code. Get message. Whatever that message is, I want to pump out to the message. And that's going to be my new message. And so that won't be this anymore. This is if I have a problem. If I don't have a problem, then I want to say, I want to redirect them, right? So if I don't have a problem, I want to redirect them back to the main page. So again, what I want to do is I want to do a location change. So a header, Arg. I love when I do this, right? So let's just go and grab it from somewhere else, which should be in my game delete, which is exactly this actually. So we're going to go back into my login, register PHP, and put that right in there. So if everything goes well, right? If everything goes well, then good. Go back to my main index page. If everything good, go to index page for now, right? Or whatever page you want to send them. If everything bad, send back to this message and keep them in the registration page, right? Make sense? Okay, let's try it out, just like this. So first we register, and then we'll try and see if we can see that we registered the user properly by using my SQL Workbench, right? Okay. So let's go back to here, and I'm going to click on register, and I'm going to put in another username and password. So we'll say Michael, and my password is going to be 123456. Click text again, and Mike Smith, right? And submit. Cool. All right, so what did it say? So an error occurred. No connection can be made because the target machine actively refused it. I'm okay with that. Why did it actively refuse it, right? Well, there's two possibilities. One, I put the wrong statement in, right? And the way to check this, and I'm going to go back to do this. That's just a regular thing, right? But if I go back to my home page here, so if I go back to this, right, then I get this too, right? So it's not specific to me, right? I'm not able to connect with any connection, right? Not even with my other. Remember we changed our username and password? Maybe something changed there. Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I made a finger typing error that changed everything, right? So we want to make sure that that's the case. Let's try this out. So I'm going to go back to PHP Storm, and we're going to go back to my index.php. And this is where our config database PHP is, which is cool. Select start from games. This is okay. DB prepare. I'm going to go into my database file in a second. I just want to make sure that this is nothing's changed here. And I don't think I messed it up here because I was copying, remember? So I was hoping that nothing like this would change. Let's go back into my database.php file, which is this one. And username, password, username, password. Oh, the message, get message, and I set up a message already. So why would that not work? Well, let's check locally. Remember, we're going to do the same thing. That's why I kept this little script here, right? Remember that there's always an opportunity for this. But the problem is with local, what do I do locally that I don't have remotely? Or I have remotely that I don't have locally? I don't have my, I don't have a users table locally. I have to create that. All right, let's do it. Yes. Sorry. In fact, you know what? Let's undo. Yeah. I'm gonna do that now. And comment these in. The only thing is that I need to, when I uncomment these ones, I need to actually change these to uppercase because of what I've done. What have I done? Right. Well, this is the thing is where we trace, right? We trace to see if it's a me error or if it's some kind of other error. You know, maybe I did something wrong. Right, so that's what this does. Let's see if I can just read the database. Thank you. Okay, let's see if I change it here, and if I refresh, does it refuse? No, right? So this is local, right? So that's good. So something else is going on. See what I'm saying? Like I don't want to. It could be some other kind of connection issue, like here in the room, and I don't want to, chance to what it is. Don't freak out at what the message is for me, right? There's no need for it. So let's just go into this part and add into my PHP my admin. Let's add in that stuff. Remember I talked about adding in some information. I can do it really easy here. So if I go to, I put it in here. Yes. Good. So now what I want to do is inside my game DB, I want to add in a new table, which we're going to call users with 4 columns. Okay, the first column is going to be the ID column. An integer, the length is going to be, I don't care. Not null. No, it can't be null, but it's got to be auto incrementing. This has got to be turned on. Yes, 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 of course. I want to do that with the primary key. And we'll say a length of 10. What do we make it, 25 or something like that? I don't think we need that long. What was that? I don't know. And then let's do username, just to keep the same username. And we're going to do the value is going to be length is 50, and my varchar or varchar, whatever you want to call it. Here we're not going to set a default password. For now we're going to do the same thing. Varchar 50. We're not leaving them as null. This actually checks it off as null. Like it says, it's okay to be null. It's not okay. And this will be display name. It's also varchar, but I'll make it 100. Varchar 100. And none of it can be null. Okay, cool. So we've done this. Press save. We processed it. Everything is good, right? Auto increment. Let's add in some data. Remember I talked about data? Here it is. So our username is here. We're going to say Thomas, and my password is 123456. Okay, I'm okay. And then there we go. Might as well add another one in there, like John Smith. So another one in there, John Smith. John Smith. And the password is 123456 as well. And we'll say John Smith. Oh. Okay, we had a couple of users in there, so now we can test. Let's go back into my no.
I believe.
No. I saved it. Come on. Don't say that, guys. You're making me crazy. Well, let's see. Games, users.
No, we have to.
Excuse me? No, we don't. It's right there. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Killing me. All right. Let's go back and check this thing and see if it works. Okay, so, and we're going to go register. So register. Oh, it's only, sorry, users. Register.php, because we don't have a link yet. And we'll do another one. We'll say this one will be James Bond. So James Bond. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Display name James Bond. Submit. See if it works. Let's go back into our thing here. We'll go into PHP My Admin, and let's see if we get into GameDB users, and we see James Bond, right? So that's how it does it, just like we normally would set up any kind of thing into the database. Okay, now that that's done, we have to see if we can compare what we have when we log in with someone that exists in the database, right? We'll keep this little thing open just in case. Okay, so going back to this part, this is what we need to perform when we check to see if the person is logged in, this valid admin login, right? And it's almost like I want to perform login or do login or something like that, like a login.php, but it's just for this, where I select my user from users, right? Whatever my username is from users, where my username is equal to :username, and I don't care about my password, but sure, my password, I can check both of them, right? Password is equal to password, and if that's true, then I'm good to go. And then my return is valid. Notice that this returns something, this function, right? Well, actually, what I want to say is everything's okay, right? If everything's okay, what am I going to do? Log them in, right? And set up the session variable. Okay, so for now, I'm just going to log them in. It's going to just say everything's okay, and redirect them back to the other page, whatever the page is. Okay, so let's do this thing. So again, it's in here where we're going to set up a new file, right? Where I'm going to check. I'm not going to do it within my login page itself, because I want to be able to check to see if the user is logged in. Maybe I will do it in the login page. All right, well, let's just go into the login page and do it here on the top. So what it would be like is very similar to what we just did, right? So I'm going to say something like, does my user exist? Is username already set, right? And I would get that, of course, from the username session, right? So I would say, if is set, right? Username. So again, the super global variable, because we're going to post back to itself, but it would be a get, wouldn't it? It would be a get. Get, and it would be username, right? If that's true, then we can say messages equal to logging in. Bear with me, otherwise, else we want to do this. This is our test to see if we can post back to ourselves. So I always do one step at a time like this when I'm doing something new. And so now when I click my button, what I'm doing is my input type is submit, my login. Where am I going to go? It's going to go back to my action for my form. Here's my form. And it's doing post. Okay, that's fine. So I can do a post. That's good. And I'll do my action is equal to login.php. So I'll change that up there to my post container instead of my get container, which is perfectly fine for me. So if my username, my post, we know this works because we've done it before, so we can post to ourselves. All right, and if I go back to here and I go into login, so somehow I got redirected back to my login page. So users, login, PHP, 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 arg. And if I go and do, me, and then whatever my password is, doesn't really matter. I'm not checking anything right now. And go log in, and I should get this thing that says log in. So I know that it's receiving the message. You understand how I'm getting that? Because the form itself is posting back to itself, post back. And the post back is happening right at the top of the form. The form is saying, okay, did I get the stuff coming from the form here? And if I got it, fantastic. I know that the user's trying to log in. However, if I don't get anything, if I've just been brought here from another page, I wouldn't get a username, right? Because my username wouldn't exist. So therefore, it would just continue logging me in. It would just display the page, right? Okay, let's go back to this. Okay, so now this is the first part. Now, this is not the right message, right? I want to redirect the user if I'm logged in properly. So if everything goes well, just like I've done with my registration page, right? Just like I've done with up here, it's very similar to what I'm doing up here, right? So I want to do this relocation stuff. If everything goes well, relocate, right? So that's what I'm going to be doing here as well. So if everything goes well, then relocate, and my message is going to be good, right? We're not going to actually go to the message anymore, right? If nothing's happening. I'm never going to stay there, right? Otherwise, show me an empty message, okay? However, I need to wrap all this in a try catch, right? So I'm going to do the same thing. I might as well do it from the beginning. So try, right? So I'm going to try and do a try catch. Try catch, where I have an exception. and which is $E. And then inside my catch, I'm going to say something like, you know, my messages is equal to $E, and then get messages. Right? And this one would not go here. It would go up here because we've done everything. So try basically says, hey, let's do some exception handling this. Try and see if we can do this. If we can't do it, then send a message out to the messenger because there's some kind of problem right now. Whatever the problem is, maybe you logged in incorrectly or username and password didn't match or something like that. Something happened. Let's log in. Let's send a message over there. Yeah.
Your next one will be right.
No, that's if else. This if is this part, right? It won't do this part. Make sense? All right. So so now it's going to be the same thing for our other stuff. So if I go back to this, it's the same query statement and all this stuff. So I might as well grab all this and just modify it, right? So instead of select from games, I want to do a select statement, right? But I want to do modifications on this one. So this is like the index.php page where I'm listing, but I'm not going to fetch all. I'm going to do something different. All right, so I'm going to go back to my login page, and up here, I'm going to paste, right? And now let's take a look at what we have to do. So select, when we do a select statement, select user name. So for now, we don't care about the user ID for now. We're looking at username, right? And from users. Actually, it's really our user ID. It's actually ID from users. Select ID from users, where it's got to be there, where my username is equal to username and my password is equal to password. So let's do it on another line where my username is equal to dot username and my password is equal to password. Makes sense? That's a select statement. I got to bind those values though, right? So I prepare my query. That's the same. Now here's where I bind my values. And I'm going to get that from my register page because I already got that code. Very similar to that. Are you good so far? Like nothing's really here that should be freaking you out at this point. Okay, then we execute, but instead of doing a fetch all, right, we execute, and then we say that depending on if we get a row count of 1, if we get one that matches, right, then we are good, right? Otherwise, we're not good, and we're going to send a negative message, right? So if my statement row count is equal to 1, that's all I want. So I'm only looking for 1. I'm not going to fetch all in this case, right? And notice that also, right, I'm not closing my cursor until I make this check, right? So I can say something like this. If, either way, I'm going to close out afterwards. But if my statement dash row count is exactly equal to 1, then we know we have a match, right? If we have a match, what should I do? I want to close out. Either way, I want to close out, right? But I want to do that explicitly. So I want to kind of do capture this, and I know I'm duplicating for a second, but I want to close out everything, and then after I close out, I want to log them in. So I want to kind of send them back to the page. I want to do this header redirect stuff. This is where we're good. How about when we're not good? What if we don't get a row of 1? We get more than 1 or something else, or 0, right? So if I get more than 1 or 0, something's wrong, right? And I want to do an else. I'm going to definitely close out. Now, I got to be careful because I can't close out before I do my statement. That's why I need to do it twice. Either way, I've got to close out. If I close out before I do my statement, I'm not going to get a row count, right?
Can you do this section after the anything else, so that it happens?
Not because because I'm redirecting. So I may never get. Yes, I know, but I may never get past there. If I get to here and I'm good, I want to get out of here, right?
Oh, okay.
And if I get out of here, I'm never going to close,
Oh,
right?
no, because it wouldn't do.
No,
anyway,
it won't. No, it won't finish this. If I do this here, my header, I'll escape.
Okay, yeah.
I'll escape from here, right? So now this is where my $ messages is equal to invalid username or password. We don't know what the problem is, but one of those two issues is happening. Okay? Make sense? Okay. I'm going to run overtime, guys. You guys can go if you need to, but I'm going to continue because I'm running low because I'm going slow for you guys, right? So I don't mind going. No one's going to bother me, and I'll keep recording until the cows come home, right? But I need to get this done. All right. So how does this work? So let's see if it does work, first of all. Does any of this work, right?
Can you go up for a second?
Yeah. Here, hold on a second. Yeah, I'm just gonna do this.
We don't have user and password.
Sorry?
We don't have username and password declared here. So,
Yes, you're correct. Yeah, because username and password aren't a thing. Very good. So we need to do the same thing we did with our register page. That was good. That was a good catch. We need to do this. So all this stuff that we're doing up here, which is our password, is post password, and all this kind of stuff, right? I want to kind of copy this part and go in here and in my register. Notice I split this up because I want to later on. I want to check to see if we're good, right? So I want to do a separate query like this one actually. I return this query, this exact one almost, right? But it wouldn't be with username and password; it'd just be with username. If I return one, that's bad, right? So that I would return a message. Okay. So let's do this. So I'm gonna go back to here, and I'm gonna log in now. I'm gonna go with Thomas, and I know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and log in. Okay, cool. So now we have an error. This is good. I like errors because at least we can deal with them. So notice undefined variable DB. Oh yeah, that's a problem. My login to PHP line 9. Okay, we not do the include? I think we missed that part. And we did. Yeah, we missed that part. So that would be inside after it's set. We want to do that right here. That's one part we missed. And again, I would do it this way because I wouldn't want to check my my database more than one time. So refresh, yes, continue. Okay, that's good. That's a positive, right? All right, now it doesn't log us in. There's actually no logging in. It just checks right now, right? The logging in part adds to the session, all this kind of stuff, and then check to see if I'm really physically there, right? All right, let's try it again. Let's try the registration of the login piece where I fail. So I'm going to do login or users dot slash login.php, and let's try something else. Let me try and some gobbledygook. So both username and password wrong. Login, invalid username and password. Right? Make sense?
so how did you fix the DB trouble again?
How did I fix it? I didn't include it. Like in my code up here, I didn't include my DB in here at all, right? So that's why. So if I put an invalid username or password, it won't work. If I put a proper username but an invalid password, and if I click login, it won't work, right? If I put something else, it doesn't really matter. It uses both. It needs both of these to work, right? And that's good. That's a good sign that it matches those two things. If I match, that's the first part of authentication. Can I find the user in the database? Yes? Wonderful. If I can, redirect. Okay. Now, this is the piece that gets a little bit more tricky, right? Because now that we've got this piece separated into PHP login and register pages, that's what these two things are, right? Login and register, right? Okay. And they give you some examples in the book. So this is the controller to protect the pages, right? This is what this does is it checks to see if my session starts. Now I want a session start. I want to do this part here as an example. And I want to include this piece, right? I want to include this piece if, as soon as I log in. So I want to start my session as soon as I log in. Okay, now I could do this piece, this session start stuff, right, as an example, as soon as I'm logged in properly, right? So I log in and a session start, okay? Now, this is good, right? So I want to do my session start. I'm going to take you back to this, right in here in my login page. So as soon as I'm done this, I check to see if everything's good before I redirect myself. In here, everything is good. I've closed everything off, and now I'm going to do a session start. Okay, that's the first part. So this is setting up the, I'm going to set up my session here. Okay, this part. So this is when I'm going to start doing stuff. Now, this is where they do require once they connect to the database and all that stuff. We do it differently, right? Okay, and they also check to see if my action is a post or a get, and this is how they filter how they get here. It doesn't really matter in this particular case. Okay, how about if the user is not logged in, right? So this is going to be checked. So check to see if the user is logged in first. If the user is logged in, we can kind of put this to see if is authenticated. And I can create a is authenticated path, a PHP file that all it does is check to see if this is true. And if it's true, if he's authenticated, cool, keep going, right? If he's not authenticated, redirect him. It's very simple. So how do we do that? It's a new file, my friends. So we're going to make a new file that's going to be inside of our users file, right? Because this is all to do with users and authentication. We can also always call this auth or admin. So a new PHP file, which I'm going to call is authenticated, right? You can also, if you want to really go with a way of doing things, we've been using this method is authenticated, right? .php. Okay, so there it is. This is authenticated PHP. Now what this does in here is we're just going to do that one thing, right? So in here, we're going to check to see if is set session. So is set, and then our $_ session. Is it set? Right? If it's not, if it's good, keep going, right? If it's not, redirect. So if that's true, we're going to check to see if it's not set. If it's not set, then redirect. Else, keep going. Wherever they're going, do this first. That's what this is happening, right? So we're going to do another header. So we're going to go back to my, just how we did the login page here, where we did the header, instead of it being indexed PHP. Now this is interesting because I'm coming from, is authenticated is coming from my users, and I'm going to my login page. Now we got to be very careful here, right? Because I want to redirect to my login page. But what if I'm trying to get to it from somewhere else? It's almost like I got to go up one, down into users. And I could do that, up one, back down into users, and then back into login.php. Why would I do that? Because I'm in here, right? So if I go back up one, then back down into users, I'm coming up and down, right? But what about if I was in here? I'll be up one, down into users, back in here. What about if I'm in here, in my index? Well, it wouldn't happen out here. Any page out here in the core, in the root, I don't care about if it's authenticated. It's only in these sections here. That's how I'm setting up my application, right? You might set it up differently, right? But it's got to be checking, right? So I'm going to say if not set, go back to my login page, right? How about if it is set, then don't worry about it. Don't do anything. Don't redirect if it's not, if I'm good, right? So how does this work? Well, if I want to do my game delete or game details or update my database, anytime I want to do any of these, it's going to redirect me. It's going to check to see if I'm logged in. So let's do that. So I'm going to go game delete. And I'm going to, just like we're including once up here. So I'm connecting to my database. And then before I even do any of this stuff, I'm going to do up one, go down to users, into my is authenticated, right? Is authenticated -php, and check to see if that's true.
Now, just from a security standpoint, do you care if you're connected to the database first, or do you care if you're connected to see if you're authenticated?
That's pretty cool too. I guess you're right.
No,
No, I agree with you. I think you wouldn't get to this line. You won't get to this line 4, until line 3 is executed. I agree with you. I think it's the right way to do it, right? So, I mean, it just doesn't really matter, but why? Sure, why not? Let's do it the right way. And same thing. We'll go with your thinking, right? And same thing with my update database. Won't even update database until you're logged in, right? What if the person gets there and for whatever reason tries to get there? They each need to be logged in. File, save all. Okay, so that's this part. And what about logging out? Logging out's got to be a function too, right? Because if I'm logged in, I'm always going to be logged in. Like right now, I'm logged in. So it's always going to go. How do I log out? Well, so this part, it just says, check to see if my session, here's something that I've checked. Session, I can't just check session. I got to check my session has some kind of username, right? And notice that I did that, right? When I set my session up, right? Wherever I set my session up, let me see, go here for a second, which is, I'm getting pinged like crazy for whatever reason. It's just nonstop here. Here, right? So this area here, it's the same form. It actually sets a session variable right here after my session's been controlled, and it says is valid admin is equal to true, right? I can set it up. So I can say, I can call this like a username or is logged in. You know, is logged in is equal to true. So instead of checking this part, like this session, right? Session, and then is underscore logged underscore in, right? If is set is logged in, if my session is set, let me make sure that's correct. Yeah. Otherwise, if it's not logged in, then you can they wipe it out. Like they come down here and they wipe it out, which would be session is array, right? And you log out. And this is your logout right here. So you destroy the session and you log out. That's all it is. And that's what we're going to do next. When we're logged in, we need to set logged in as true.
You need to set the session to a blank array before destroying it?
No. No, once we set it up over the first time, we're good to go. So if we go to our login, and after we set up the session, we want to set this up in here before we go. So we're going to say something like $_session, right? And then is underscore logged underscore in is logged in is equal to true, right? That's what this does. And then when we come here, we check to see if is logged in exists. If, however, what about if we log out, right? And when we log out, all we're going to do is going to go there and redirect us. That's all it's going to be. So it's going to be another one of these. So another new PHP file, which is going to be logout.php. And again, the only thing we want in our logout, we don't need to access the database in this case. Get rid of all this. Right? All we need to do is exactly what it says here. Session is equal to array, and then session destroy. So
What is that session equal to array?
So what this does is it sets it up. It sets it up into a blank array, right? Which means it wipes it out. It kind of cleans it up. It doesn't. It unsets the session, right? The variable. Okay, right? And then we can go session underscore destroy. And what this does is it kills you. And then what we want to do is we want to redirect. So again,
Want it to be the thing session array before we destroy it.
we're destroying the session, right? The session itself is almost like allows us to.
Destroying the session, but why do we turn it into a clean array?
It's just us cleaning up after ourselves. That's really what it is. And also to make sure that just in case for whatever reason, if we check again, it won't be set, right? Because setting up when we check is it set, right? If it's set, then it would be is logged in is equal to true, right?
So the session destroyer might not destroy it.
No. This sets up the way of keeping the state, like the session state, the session variable between form. Remember, we're not passing session anywhere, right? I'm not passing that variable. I'm never passing it from one place to the other. My session passes the variable around, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have to do it. I don't have to do it manually. It does it automatically for me, right? Okay. And so when I destroy it, it doesn't pass the variable around, but it stays around. It's there, right? So somehow what happens? Sometimes it causes a glitch. If you don't destroy if you don't set it to an empty array or something, it might, for whatever reason, register that the person's logged in, right? Which I don't want. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to users login PHP. So when I'm logged off, I'm going to log them back in. I'm going to put them back into the login page. All right. Cool. Let's see how this works. So first, let's log out. So I'm going to do logout.php. It should take me back to the login page if this worked, right? But what about if I'm already logged out? Is it going to affect me? Can I destroy a session that doesn't exist? Well, no, I should check. If my session variable exists, then I can do this. Otherwise, don't. Just redirect. Right? There's no point. There's no point taking me back. I should just stay where I am. Right? If I try and bounce out, then it shouldn't bounce out. It should just keep me back to where I was, right? Or kick me back to the main page or something. Right? So I should check. I should say something like, well, if it's set underscore session, right? And then I'm going to say check is underscore logged underscore in. If that's true, then do all this, session destroy and blah, 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 right? Else, what if I'm already logged out somehow, right? If I'm already logged out, then I don't want to try and destroy my session again. So I just want to redirect back to the main page for now. Oops. So that would be under and
Because our index is already actually inside of the login or go into our index, right? So we just our login page is pretty much an ending page.
yeah, for now. Yeah, but eventually we'll make it so it's not. We'll make it so that you have to get authenticated together in there too. Sorry, I just want to make sure that this is correct. Okay, so one is going to take us back to our login page if you're logging out. Otherwise, it'll take you back to your index page. So that's the way you know the difference. Okay. And maybe what we also want to do is we want to set up our message. My message variable, I want to set it up, but I can't do that here because it'll be reset. Okay, so let us try this out. So I'm going to go back here and just do a logout. So again, it'll be a user's logout. So users logout.php. Okay, so what did it do? Didn't work, because if it did, it would take me back to my login page, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so let's log in and let's see if that maintains login now. So users login.php. Okay, so this is going to set up my session and all that stuff. Cool. This is good. So this is good. Now, if I go to here, oh, see that checks right there. See how it bounced me? Then they didn't detect that I was logged in, right? So I'm going to go back. There's some stuff, but it worked. Actually, the bouncing worked around because it didn't detect that I was logged in somehow. So if I go back to my users page, my regular index.php page, this part, I can show this. But if I click on delete, even if I say OK, it's going to just, oh, that would work.
Go back to edit.
Edit? No. That's good. But it shouldn't allow me to delete either.
But delete's not a good page. It just says the action.
Yes, but it does PHP. Yeah, I got to check it out. I got to see what it does, right? So,
I think it just
okay, let's add. Let's see if I can do an ad.
already connected to the database that makes PHP and it doesn't need to check
Well, let's see if I can do the ad. Right? No. So if I log in, if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then it should take me back to my log to this page here, and I can be able to do the ad. But see, it kind of redirects me back. So it's working, kind of. It's checking to see if it's set, but it's not set.
But it's not safe. It's,
Let's go back and figure out why, right? What was that? Well, here's what they're doing, right? It says how to use form-based authentication. Make sure that this is set and the location. So forces a valid admin user, right? So utility file that forces a valid admin user, you can do this. So is valid, and then header is the same page, right? Code that's included at the top of the login page. Require once, utility, check to see if he's secure, which we've done. Check to see that if that is, now see how they actually do a valid admin first before they check secure connection. These secure connections and valid admin are just the page we just covered, right? So let's go back. So again, this page is my admin DB PHP. This is my login and register page. These pages are good, right? But then when I come to this is my controller for if my session is valid, right? And if my session is valid, right? So it's checked to see if it's not valid. And if it's not valid, then log in. That's what this action means. Just it's going to set the action in a switch statement, right? So here's a switch statement. If I got to log in, then I have to get my input, my email or username and password. And if is valid admin login, this is where they check to see if my email and password are good, right? Then my session is valid is equal to true. And then I want to include, we're headering. And I wonder if that's the reason. Because we're using a header, not an include. Where include would be included right underneath there. View, admin, menu. Admin menu. Yeah. But our session is live. That's the thing. Our session wouldn't get destroyed. It's created, right?
Are you starting to start the session on all those pages?
I'm just checking. I'm seeing where I've come up here, right, with stuff, right? So the session start is here. Yeah, and I start the session on login.
Start on a new page. Doesn't it not start the session?
Hold on. I think you're right.
Yeah, this is what I had to do last semester.
No, I'm sorry. I just have to check to see what's happening here because this page is being accessed. This is the controller for protected pages, which is secure connection. Right, that's what that is. So yeah, and my protected pages, each protected page would include a secure connection check, which means it would register the session every time. And that's if my go ahead. Hold on a second. But that doesn't make any sense. A little bit. Let me tell you why. Okay, so let's go back. Let's look at the logic for a second. All right. So my logout, here's my logout, right? My logout logs me out and uses headers to redirect me. No problem. And it checks to see if my session is logged in. If not, cool. It logs me out, right? Now this happens right away. Like there's nothing to do. I just go there right away and I check to see if I'm logged in. Login page. My login page includes my database connection, checks to see if my username exists. If it does, attempts to log me in with proper username and password. If it succeeds, which is right here, I close my cursor and start my session, right? And then I set my session is logged into true, right? And then I redirect myself back to my index page. Now my index page knows nothing about session. Maybe we can't use header. Maybe we need to use include. That's what I'm saying.
Then we should start session on every single page.
Yeah, that's what I wrote.
All right, let's do it. I don't know why you need to do that for non-registered pages, but sure. So if I go to index.php, and if I did what you're telling me to do, it'd be like this: start session. Sorry, session. Start. Right. So this way it would be here. And if that's true, then I might as well put it inside my database.php file, because that's on every page pretty much, right? So that would be, and I'd even have to put it on my logout page.
Yes, destroy that.
Yeah, because otherwise it wouldn't be any good, right? So, so sorry, let me go back into my DB, my config DB. And right at the top, I'm just going to do the same. That first thing, start the session. Okay, it's my start session. And then what I want to do is in my logout page by itself, I want to start session. Because I never access the DB there. If what you're saying is correct. And that's why I destroy everything afterwards. Okay, but if I destroy it and I set it, I'm going to set it anyway, right?
Yeah, but it's going to be a different session.
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm just trying to take it in. I'm trying to take in the flow, right? I know it sounds weird, but it needs to be done, because when you start making changes like this, you come run around in circles, and you don't want to do that. So let's go back and log out. .php. Good. Now, oops, what the hell? Now, log in. I logged in. Great. Now, edit. See what I'm saying? Okay, how about in my is authenticated page? Hold on. Yeah, I need to check that here too, right?
Yeah, but at the point, it doesn't make any sense here.
It does, because I'm checking session. I'm checking session here, right? So
yeah,
file, save all.
Session anyway.
Well, no, I'm checking to see if it's logged in. If it's not,
That certain variable to see if it's
that's all I'm checking.
Wait, in login, we have a is logged in. Are we setting a is logged in session variable in?
Only in logged in. Yeah, and if not, I'm gonna send it back.
Oh,
Okay, let's log out again. I'm telling you, it's got to be done, because otherwise it'll be just I won't destroy my session, so I won't know for sure where this go. Okay, cool. So now I'm logging in. Cool. Add a new game. That's good. That's much better, right? No, it is. So here it is. The session has already been started, ignoring session start, and blah, blah, blah. Now I'm still here. It's actually good, right? So I got to check to see if it's already started. And if that way, if it's already started, I don't already started. If not, I start the session. And that's the code that I need to put in my DB config file, right? We're so close. Like I'm telling you, we're very close to this. So now if I log out, right? So if I go back to logout, so users, logout, go back to here. And now we're going to go back here. Are you getting it?
can we just kind of see the login real quick?
My login page?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Where do we set the
Session right here.
session start?
And that's why I don't need to do that, because I already set it up here right? I already set it up here,
Yeah.
and I'm setting it again. So this is where it's being set twice. Make sense? So I can take it out. Okay, because it's always going to be set when I come here. And that's what I'm saying. In my mind, I have to think about how this whole thing flows. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. We can play around for hours and it won't be done, right? All right. So file, save all. Okay, let's go back and try it again. Right. So we're gonna log in. Oh, and then go into this, and now it still gives me this page. Yeah, maybe. But let's log out for a second. Okay, now we want to refresh this page. I still think I need to check.
Yeah, I think there's some ones.
Yeah.
The problem might be we're starting the sessions twice.
No, I know that,
If you
but
put it in your config database file, then you're starting the session twice
Yeah.
on every single page. Because what they were saying was that you have to put it in for every page, but if you're connecting to the database and you're including it to the database and the session starts in that database folder, then you're going to start the session twice when you do your include database. So
yes,
if
because I'm including, I'm not headering.
no, we'll go back to
It's a different thing. Yeah, yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, okay. That's what I think about.
No, I think you're right. So I would take it out of there saying put it on the pages, but
Or you can do
or I can just do the check, which is basically inside my database.php. If it's not set, set it.
Yeah.
That's the right thing to do, right? So I can say if
How do you check?
not is set underscore session. If it's not set to anything, right?
if the session isn't started, then you have to start it.
Oh, ooh.
Because we're not looking at that variable anymore. Just want to see if the session has all of these.
We can check if session start, but how do you check to see that? If it's not set session, it's session. Let's see what else they have here. Commit. If session name, session status. There we go.
Yes. Session status. PHP session none.
Is equal to PHP session none.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
what Stack Overflow says.
Status is equal to PHP underscore session none. Right? Then session start. And we don't have to have an else in here. Make sense?
Something in the website.
Huh?
As long as it makes.
If Azure thinks it's okay, then yeah.
Well, I didn't look. I was thinking. I looked through it. I looked through it. And I go session status. It's got to be. I got to be able to check for session status. All right. Let's do it again.
Yeah, it seems
I like how you're thinking. Yeah, that's good. Let's go back to this and let's log out. I really want to build my navigation, but I won't do it till next week. Users, and then log out, and then log in. We're very close. Like it's like stupidly close. And now we can add the game. So we'll add in that Fallout 4 for $79.99. See if this works. We're good to go. And now we can still go in there. I can delete too, but what about if I log out? I will get it once in a while. And let's say, for example, I go back to my home page, which is this. I try to edit, it should bounce it back. Now it looks like a lot, but really it's not. But we didn't do a lot. All we have is really, let's review before we end off for today. I know I went off for about a half an hour, but I'm kind of behind by about a session in a bit with you guys, right? So here's the reason why this all happened. One, we refactored our stuff. And by the way, before I'm going to talk this out, I'm going to forget to do this. git dot git commit -m, and I'll say added simple security. Very simple. And then git push origin master. And we're going to do the more secure stuff later on, right? Because what I want to do next is hash my passwords. So everything's hashed. Make sure that it can connect to my remote. It couldn't connect to a remote for whatever reason now, right? So we have to check that out, see what the problem is there. Do I have to use a different handle, a different way of doing things? So I got to check that out. We want to check to see if I want to register the same user, I got to fix that problem. What if I register a user? I'm trying to register a user that already exists, right? I got to check that out. You know, all these other things there's still left to do, right? To make it more rock solid.
So next class will be focusing on
A little bit of that, and then also on more of exception handling, because what I want is I want to send more messages back to the registration page and my user page and everything else to make it work, and anything else that we didn't capture today. Now, I know this sounds like a lot, but you know, this is navigation. I also want to put in so that the navigation, what happens is, one of the problems is we have no navigation, and I want to be able to show and hide stuff. So right now we go to that main list, game list page. I don't want to show the game list at all. I want to go to a landing page, and that game list page is going to be inside the games folder, and it's going to be protected. So I won't be able to get there anymore. So I want to do that, and then I only will be able to get there if I do that. I also want to do user management, which is another whole section. How do I? So I can log in, I can register, I can log out, I can check if someone's authenticated, but then I can also manage users. So I can actually go in there and go, okay, let's add a user, delete a user, modify a user, which I can't do right now. I can't modify users. I can only add a user, right? Yeah, it's almost like a user list, right? So what if I have an admin? I'm different kinds of users, have different authorization. So one part is authentication. Who am I, right? Next part is authorization. What can I do, right? And users can go in and register right now, but you know, admins are the only ones that should be able to go in there and do. So I might have to change my user table to say what role is that person? Is it an admin? Is it a regular user? What person is he, right? Okay, so what do? Just as a recap before you guys go, since you're here. We set up a users folder. We restructured. We set up a users folder, and inside there we put in a login and register page. At the top of the login and register page, what we did was we set out to just kind of define if the username is already there. If the username is there, that means that the page has been accessed. I've actually pushed a user from my form to the page itself, like back to the page itself. Right, that's what I'm checking here. And this is a kind of a difficult concept, but it's almost like I'm posting back. It's called a post back. I'm posting back to the page, right? Remember, the page has two parts, one logic part and one non-logical part. The logical part is the PHP part that sits at the top of the page. The logical part, the non-logical part is the HTML that sits in the middle of the page that renders our view, right? Take care. Okay, so that's that part. And I'm doing it both for the login and register pages. Right, so both login and register pages has this post back effect where I'm posting back to the page itself. Okay, now we still haven't done this, and that's a kind of a to-do, like I said, to check for unique username.
So then post back is just to save you from having to go again.
Yeah, for example, I could have broken this out into a couple more pages. One of them that has
is this structure then putting down pages? Or?
No, no. Best, always better to have its own controller. No. What I can do is in my users folder. Right now I have a users folder and I have a game folder, right? But what I should really have is a models folder, a controllers folder, and I should have a views folder, right? My views folder should be all my views for users, for login, log out, blah, blah, all these things, right? And it'll have subfolders. So I'll have a views folder. All my views are just pages. Pages, call them whatever you want, right? And my pages will have a users pages, and I'll have a games pages, just pages with HTML, mostly HTML, right? Then I'll have my controllers, and my controllers I'll have in my controllers folder I'll have a user subfolder and a game subfolder. And inside the user subfolder I'll have my login, my log out, all those different kinds of controllers, the controller pieces to control all the stuff that's going on for my pages. And then I'll have different parts to that. In my models folder, it'll just be how I connect to the database. So that'll be my config, my database.php. It'll also include the model for my users, right? So instead of me randomly asking for username and password, I'll actually use a class to do that. I'll use a PHP class, I'll create a class. It'll be a user's class, and I'll be able to attach objects to that class, and it'll propagate from one page to the other. We're going to get there. We can't do all this right away. It's too much. Look, we barely made it here, right? Questions around this stuff. So this is basic authentication.
Yay.
Yeah, I know. Are you good? Are you more understanding, less understanding? How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm starting to more understand.
Okay, I know it's just doing. We just have to keep doing.
That's why I was wanting like small things so that way I can try it, error out, and then I can find exactly where I'm going wrong.
For sure, and that's so. What I'll do is like I said, I'll see if I can structure a couple of smaller assignments, and one of them will be a makeup assignment for assignment 1.
Awesome.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. See you next week.
Thanks, sir. Wait, do you have like